بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وسبحان الله العلي العظيم نحمد الله الذي لا يحمد على مكروه سواه نحمده ونستجير به ونستعينه ونستنصره ونرجوه ونستغفره فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا الله ونصلي ونسلم ونبارك على المعلم النبي الأمين الذي أرسل رحمة للعالمين أرسل ليعلم الناس الدين الحق الأوحد دين الإسلام ذكرى للمسلمين وعلى آله الأطهار الميامين وعلى أصحابه المختارين وعلى من اتبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين قال الشاعر: طرقت باب الرجا والناس قد ناموا وبت أشكو لمولاي ما أجد أشكو إليه أمورا يعلمها طرقت باب الرجا والمسلمون قد ناموا. The poet said, I stayed up late at night when people have fallen asleep, and I supplicated to my Lord, complaining to my Lord what my Lord already knows. Our day today, the overwhelming feeling of it's not I have stayed up at night, late at night, to supplicate to my Lord when people have fallen asleep. But it feels like when all Muslims have fallen asleep. A long, deep sleep like death. I like to present pictures because awareness is the beginning of everything, as I've said repeatedly. If we are not aware, there is no hope. At least awareness plants the seeds for future generations. Generation upon generation upon generation. And maybe, if Allah wills, one generation. Things can change overnight in one single generation. But Allah is just, and Allah will not grant change to those who are oblivious. If you are asleep, Allah will let you sleep. It is not Allah's job to wake you up. If you are awake, if you are aware, then at least the possibilities, the potentialities open up. Recently, after the Usuli conference, I was having a conversation with a friend. And the conversation went to all the historical sites that were destroyed in Mecca and Medina. And my friend said, don't you know, there is a 10-volume work published, of course, in London by Al-Furqan Foundation, by the late Zaki Yamani. He didn't write it, but the foundation was something that he founded, that meticulously documents the historical sites that are no more. Of course, I did what I know, to my great shame and great agony, very few Muslims will do. I immediately bought the set at any price. And Allah knows that my family has suffered for 30 years because of the burden of buying books. So when I say I bought it at any price, it's not because I'm a wealthy man, and it's not because my family doesn't sacrifice, and it's not because my family has not been traumatized and continues to be traumatized by my unrelenting pursuit of knowledge. And this is not a virtue. This is an obligation, a duty. And if my ummah carried that burden, it would be spread around. Anyway, and I proceeded to read in the 10 volumes. And I just want to give you a little taste. Just a little minute taste, because it relates to everything. It relates to our past, our present, our future. And don't kid yourself. Don't think that you can continue on with your life and think, oh, this is for academics. This is interesting. This is a marginality. I am telling you, and Allah is my witness, the slaughter that you are seeing in Palestine and in Lebanon, the slaughter that happened in Iraq, the slaughter that happened in Afghanistan, the slaughter that happened in China, the slaughter that happened in Bosnia, the ongoing plight of Muslims in India and Kashmir is all part of a package of a people who are fast asleep in deep slumber. And let me put it precise perspective. Please bear with me. This is just a book, not part of the 10-volume set, but an additional book that I bought. And this book is dedicated to the topic of the house of Sayyida Khadija, the Prophet's wife. You discover in this book, and I know that we don't have capabilities to do close-ups, but you discover that well into the Wahhabi Saudi, Al Saud era, the house existed unearthed in any respectable country with any respectable people who honor their history, their identity, their being, their faith. Any people who do not want to sleep as the world wakes up to stand and do what is right. You discover that this house had the room where Fatima radiallahu anha was born. You discover that in this house, the room where Sayyida Khadija, the Prophet's wife, used to conduct business existed. You discover not only that the instrument where Fatima radiallahu anha used to ground wheat to make bread for the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam and Khadija existed. You discover that the room where the Prophet used to pray and do tahajjud and spend hours in prayer before he was a prophet and after he was a prophet existed. And then you discover that all of it is gone and a toilet is built upon it now. Let that sink in. Our Prophet, the house where Jibreel visited, that house did not have the Prophet and Khadija and Fatima, it had Jibreel. Angel Jibreel was there. That house is the house where the Prophet supplicated and started his da'wah, his message of Islam, first in secret, hiding in Dar al-Arqam. This is the house where Khadija died and the Prophet cried. This is the house where Fatima was born and the Prophet celebrated. This is the house where they prayed together. And what's built on it is toilets. And I won't depress you, and I promise you, because I don't want Usuli to die, that I'm not going to tell you what I'm reading in the 10 volumes of the encyclopedia. Because every page is 1,000 knives in the heart and soul. Appetite is gone. Sleep is gone. But here's the thing. I cannot separate what we did to the Prophet's legacy and heritage to what we're doing to Palestine right this minute. Because I followed Saudi media, and I followed that obscenity that they call Al-Arabiya, which everyone whose respecto calls al-Ibriya. Al-Arabiya means the Arab channel. Al-Ibriya basically means the Jewish channel. Everyone knows that Al-Arabiya, the Arab channel that is owned and controlled by Saudi Arabia, is basically a mouthpiece for Israel. Everyone knows that. And everyone knows that the most popular TV station, because it presents naked women and obscenities, night and day, which is again owned by Saudi, NBC. It's popular because it presents Jahiliyyah. Well, that channel, when you listen to the two, as the genocide is going on, the same attitude towards the historical legacy of the Prophet ﷺ and his wife Khadija radiallahu anha and Fatima al-Zahra, and only if you knew what Fatima al-Zahra is repeated verbatim towards Jerusalem. Oh, every day I hear in Al-Arabiya and embassy, Al-Quds is not important. It's a fallacy. Muslims have no interest in Jerusalem. Let the Israelis take it. I am not kidding you. I am not joking. Night and day, they blame the Palestinians for their own death. And it's not about Hamas. If you think that this is about Hamas, no. They don't distinguish between Palestinians who are being slaughtered in the West Bank and Palestinians who are being slaughtered in Gaza. It's all the Palestinians are to blame. Even these babies and children who are being slaughtered in the West Bank where there is no Hamas. The same people who destroyed the house of the Prophet and the legacy of Fatima and Khadija are saying they deserve it. It's their fault. And now, with the slaughter, an entire building, 10 floors full of civilians in Lebanon. No one knows why Israel decided to strike it and destroy it with all the inhabitants and civilians. And what is the response of Al-Ibriya? The Shia. And they asked for it. And they deserve it. And what is the interest of Al-Ibriya and NBC? Let's dance. Let's sing. Let's get naked. Let's put women showing the most cleavage and the shortest dresses. These are the same people who destroyed your prophet's home. And you are in slumber. And I don't accept myself. I am as bad as everyone. People keep telling me, how could God allow this to happen? And I tell you, what type of God would not allow this to happen? If people want to destroy themselves, what type of fair God would come and say, it doesn't matter if you are in slumber, I'm going to favor you, because that's the logic of the chosen people. The very thing that Islam came to eradicate and say this is racism and unacceptable. There are no chosen people. Muslims are treated Like all human beings, you put on the work, God rewards you. You cleanse yourself, God rewards you. You work on yourself, God rewards you. But you expect just because you do salah and psalm, that God is going to say, it doesn't matter how foul your deeds are. It doesn't matter how much injustice you make and commit. It doesn't matter how flawed and unclean your vessel is. I'm going to carry you, and I'm going to prevent the evil deed. But here's the thing, and this is why God's anger, I feel it viscerally. Allah is going to reward those who are killed unjustly. But that's not our business. And we can't use that as an excuse to say, oh, well, the reward is with Allah. Because you know what? In direct proportion to Allah rewarding the victims who suffered unjustly is God's anger at those who let them suffer. So when you say these words, like Cheyenne mentioned in Khutbah about an imam who's sitting there and saying, why this is all happening is because God doesn't care about this world. And I know that theology, and I know where it comes from. And this is not our topic, and I'm not going to get into it. But, it's because Allah doesn't care about this world. And Allah is letting the Israelis do the genocide and everything so Allah can punish them in the hereafter. Yeah, I believe Allah is going to punish them in the hereafter. But Allah is going to punish even more those who are responsible for the genocide, as they stood and allowed even the house of their prophet, and not just the house, I'm telling you, 10 volumes, over 1,000 pages in each volume. So, a people that allowed the legacy of their very prophet to be destroyed, for toilets to be built where Fatima al-Zahra was born. And today, they sit by as you have the same people who did that say Jerusalem is not important and Palestinians are to blame for their own plight, and they won't even have the guts to say, we won't go to Hajj or Umrah as long as you are in control. 1,300 Muslims died, and the videos are on YouTube. What videos? This is the thing about Muslims. It's their ability to self-deceive. It's unbelievable. And this is what I realized as I'm reading these 10 volumes, night after night. 1,300 Muslims died at Hajj. On YouTube, you see all elderly people dying from thirst and heat stroke. And Muslims stopping Saudi police cars and ambulances. And the police cars come and the ambulances come and they say, do you have tarkhis? Do you have a visa to be here? And if they didn't, they say, we won't help you. We won't give you water. Watch it yourself. Look it up. No water. We're not going to take you to the hospital. And they let the elderly die from thirst. Do you know how painful it is to die from thirst? And the Israelis and the Americans as they've done throughout the history of colonialism. They say, so what if we're killing Palestinians? These people are cruel to their own kind. And look, we wouldn't do this to them. We wouldn't let them die from thirst. Of course, that's what they tell themselves. But like all racists, they live in delusion because they're racists. So that's what they tell themselves, although they let plenty of Muslims die from thirst and hunger. They're doing it to Palestinians right now. But that's part of the delusion of racism. And it's the excuse that colonialism has always used to subjugate the indigenous and to eradicate the indigenous, is to say, well, they're cruel. If only we read history. The Spaniards, what were their excuse for slaughtering the Aztecs and the Incas? Is that they're barbarians. They engage in human sacrifices. Do you know that the narrative about human sacrifices that was used by the Spaniards to eradicate the indigenous populations was more myth than reality? When the white man arrived in the US, we all grew up with Indian and cowboy movies. What was always the excuse? Indians are barbarians. They scalp people. They burn victims alive. They do horrible things. And because they're so horrible to each other, then it's not bad if we're horrible to them. But then you read history and you get an education, if you want an education, and you discover that the white man's narrative is mostly myth. The white man was far more cruel towards the fellow white man than the Indian was ever cruel towards the Indian. But what I'm saying is that the white man looks at what happened in Saudi and says, really? They go to the UN and pretend to protest about the genocide? Look what they did to their own people. And look what fellow Muslims did afterwards. They ignored it. It's on YouTube, and they don't care. They won't even say, you did this to my fellow Muslim. Even if I overlook, and I can't overlook, I'm sorry, that you've destroyed the Prophet's home and where Fatima radiallahu anha was born. And even the thing she used to grind wheat on. And Zaki Miamani, by the way, is very funny. He wants to make it sound better, so he says, well, you know, when we buried all these sites and built the toilets over them, we covered these sites with pure sand, non-corrosive sand. He wants to tell you, oh, it's okay, you know, we covered it up with gentle sand. But you built toilets over it. Before you turn and blame God and say, where is God? Where are you? Have you looked inwards? Have you checked if your vessel is clean? Have you checked if you've lived up to your obligations? I say this to you and to myself. Because God knows I'm not better than anyone. And I don't hold myself free of blame. But that's another topic for another day. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم اسأل الله يستجب لكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وسبحان الله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم على الحبيب المصطفى سيد الخلق والمعلم البشرية المرسل رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله الأطهار الميامين. If it was the Israelis, can you imagine what they would have done with the resident? If Muhammad was their prophet, can you imagine the amount of money they would have poured into taking care of their history? When they don't have history, they invent history. They make it up. And they believe the lie. And they murder the world on the basis of this lie. And we have a history and we destroy it. And we go on buying cars, buying homes, expensive furniture, living comfortable lives. And before you tell me, Khalid, oh, you just talk about problems, give me solutions. Number one, cleanse yourself. Cleanse yourself. Look around you. Where are you being unjust? End the injustice. Put a stop to your own injustice immediately. Because otherwise, you're a hypocrite. And Allah has reminded us 1,000,000 times in the Quran, Allah does not love the hypocrites. 2, very small step. You will splurge to buy tickets to a concert you want to attend, to go to Disneyland, to go to Disney World, to do I don't know what, to go have a trip. Buy the book. Buy it. And I don't care what you do with it. But support scholarship. So this is the very first act of resistance, awareness. Don't say, oh, well, I'll let the library buy it. No. Scholars need to be supported. When a group of scholars put in the effort, a tremendous, unbelievable effort, they need a message from their people. We've got your back. We've got your back. More. Listen. Just recently, listen to this. And this is so no, Allah's will. I lost it, and I'm so illiterate with things like that, it will take me forever to find it. University of Michigan. The regents of the University of Michigan were unhappy that the state prosecutor is not prosecuting students who are protesting genocide. So do you know what they did? The regents of the University of Michigan donated thousands of dollars to support and elect a new state prosecutor who is now prosecuting the students who are protesting genocide. In the news, I just read in the ride to this khutbah of a professor, a 10-year professor, who just lost her job an anthropologist, and look her up, just say 10-year professor loses her job over Palestine. It will pop up immediately. 10-year professor got fired, an anthropologist, for speaking the truth about Palestine. To me, this is a test to all of the Muslim Ummah, exactly like what happened to the house of the Prophet. Exactly like Allah sends these tests and say, let me see how you're going to do. You're worried about your job. Here is a non-Muslim who stood up and spoke the truth, and she lost her job. Oh, you don't give us solutions? Well, I'll tell you what the solution is. Donate money to hire the best lawyers to take the University of Michigan to court. They have to be sued. And they cannot be sued by young Muslim lawyers with very little experience. You have to pay the best lawyers, the lawyers who cost $1,500 an hour, because these are the lawyers that can take cases all the way to the Supreme Court and litigate it and win. Put your money in Detroit and make sure that the regents of the University of Michigan get punished for what they're doing, that they're unelected. Donate money to the University of Michigan and then withdraw the donation and say, we're withdrawing it because of what your regents did. Do like that guy who gave Harvard $100 million and said, oh, well, I'm going to change my mind unless you punish the Palestinian students. I know there are plenty of Muslims out there who have that type of money. You want solutions? The problem is you want solutions that don't actually cost you and don't hurt you. But every case, every real cause needs real sacrifices. And I've said this in the past, and I will say it again. This age, the age we live in, is not the age of sacrifices of blood. Unless, of course, Israel is bombing you and you're defending yourself. It's a sacrifice of intelligence, information, knowledge, resources, technology, science. A warrior lawyer in our age is far more important, because the warrior who's carrying a gun can be killed in an instant by a drone or by air power. But a really good lawyer is priceless. A really good politician, a really good lobbyist is priceless. A really good marketer is priceless. A really good information analyst is priceless. This is what waking up means. So when you say, I stayed up late at night supplicating my Lord while the people are asleep, it doesn't matter if they're actually asleep in their bed snoring or historically asleep, epistemologically asleep, deontologically asleep, oblivious to their world. This world we live in, you believe in a cause? Prove it with money. Prove it with effort. Prove it with telling your children, you have to be the best marketer. You have to be the best information analyst. You have to be the best politician. You have to be the best lawyer. Anyone that tells their child in our age, oh, go carry a gun, unless you're defending yourself under occupation, like the Lebanese or the Palestinians, they're insane and criminal, because if they're going to just kill innocent people. So, Or even, let me give you even a simpler solution. How about just awareness? Just read. How many Muslims, and I am willing to count on one hand, and I'm actually, this for an academic, for a scholar, is something like paralyzed, something that nearly makes your blood pressure go to the point that you feel like you're going to have a stroke. The fact that I am confident, I am absolutely confident that I am willing to count on one or two hands. Let's be generous, 2 hands. So 10 or less. The number of Muslims who are actually aware of what this encyclopedia that documents the destruction of the heritage of the Prophet says. How are a people like that going to protect Kashmir or protect Quds or protect Gaza? Are you surprised that they failed to protect Bosnia? And Bosnia was a historical opportunity of that's another topic. People don't realize by the failure to do something about Bosnia what the Muslim world lost. Bosnia could have been an historical gateway, a civilizational gateway that would have changed the course of history. But let's leave that for another day, another topic. Knowledge, learning, awareness, all of it is part of self-cleansing. Because when you invest in this intellect, this greatest of gift, the opportunities start opening up. God looks at you and says, you're actually using what I gave you. I'm impressed. You know what? And you're doing it humbly and with humility and with justice and fairness. You're not going around acting like a peacock, trampling on the rights of people. I'm going to help you. I'm going to stand by you. اللهم اغفر لنا اللهم اعف عنا اللهم ارحمنا يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اهدنا لأقرب من هذا رشدا. Allah, forgive our sins, forgive our slumber, for we have been asleep for so long. Forgive our betrayals of our Prophet. No matter how many times you say sallallahu alayhi wasallam, no matter how many times you pretend you honor the sunnah and quote hadith, we collectively have betrayed the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam and Ahlul Bayt. Can you imagine when the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in the hereafter says, I loved this house. I loved this room. This is where Fatima was born. This is where I kissed her. This is where Khadija passed. This is where I prayed. And what have you done to all of that? You've built toilets on it. And then you want me to do what for you, precisely? May Allah guide us. Perhaps our children will be better than us. And if not, perhaps the children of their children will be better than them. Perhaps there will come a generation that will finally wake up and say enough is enough. But I really pray with all my heart, as I am ashamed of all of our failures, that my generation, I pray that the coming generation, the generation that follows mine, the generation of my children, will do much better much, much better than what my generation and I have done. Wa aqim as-salah.